Good to have you with us tonight, folks. Thanks for watching. The word is bizarre. A very bizarre twist in the Trayvon Martin case. The shooter, George Zimmerman, has gone rogue, and his lawyers have had enough. Late today, they cut ties with their client.
As of now, we are withdrawing as counsel for Mr. Zimmerman. We've lost contact with him. Up to this point, we've had contact every day. He's gone on his own. I'm not sure what he's doing or who he's talking to, but at this point, we're withdrawing as counsel.
It's not so much that we're resigning. We're just announcing to you that we can no longer represent him until such time as he may come forward and ask for that help more formally and in a different context than we've had so far.
Not only has Zimmerman stopped responding to his attorneys, they don't even know where he is. They said he's still in the United States, but apparently he's not in Florida anymore.
So I will not tell you where George Zimmerman is because I don't know. But for those who are engaged in the late Easter egg hunt looking for him, you can stop looking in Florida. Look much further away than that. That
statement is a huge concern for the Martin family. One of their attorneys, Benjamin Crump, addressed it in an interview earlier tonight on this network with Al Sharpton.
They are concerned that George Zimmerman, the man who killed their son, Reverend Sharpton, is unaccounted for. His lawyers can't account for his whereabouts. He won't return their calls. In their word, is he a flight risk? Will he ever be brought to justice if and when he is charged for killing their son?
Zimmerman seems to be taking matters completely into his own hands. He apparently defied his lawyer's advice and personally called the special prosecutor in charge of the Trayvon Martin case.
One of the things every defense attorney tells his client is don't talk to the prosecutors, don't talk to the cops. Frankly, don't talk to anybody until we get control of the situation and do it through counsel. We were a bit astonished and had some conversation back and forth with the special prosecutor's office. They told us what we expected was we're not going to talk to a criminal potential defendant or suspect or target of an investigation without counsel. We're just not going to do it. And they told him that.
But there is one guy who's taking Zimmerman's calls.
We learned that he had called Sean Hannity of Fox News directly, not through us, and we believe, I can't confirm this, we believe that he spoke directly with Sean off the record, and he's not even willing to tell us what our client told him.
Zimmerman is ditching his lawyers, but he's talking to Hannity. I guess we shouldn't be surprised Hannity's made it clear whose side he's on when he played the role of defense attorney in a softball interview with George Zimmerman's father last week.
Do you think this has all been a rush to judgment by the media? You obviously have spoken to your son. Tell us his side of this story on this night. Is it true that your son would tutor African-American and minority children on the weekend? Trayvon confronted him. He reached for his cell phone, and Trayvon, this is confirmed, his nose was broken. And is it true that he had lacerations and injuries to the back of his head, sir? None of us were there, and I know people trying to put this together, but I would argue there's been a rush to judgment.
What was the question, Sean? Get your cell phones out, folks. I want to know what you think. Tonight's question, will George Zimmerman ever face justice? Text A for yes, text B for no to 622-639. You can always go to our blog at ed.msnbc.com and leave a comment. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. I'm joined tonight by Mike Papantonio, attorney and host of the Ring of Fire radio show, and Dan Gelber, former Florida state senator and former federal prosecutor. Gentlemen, great to have you with us tonight. Mike, is this a reasonable move by Zimmerman's attorneys to step out after not being able to get in contact with him for some 48 hours?
Ed, the safest thing these guys should have done is they should have just said these are irreconcilable differences. Whether it's safe or not, it's tough to say right now. What they've potentially done is prejudiced Zimmerman by these statements. I understand he's going to face a bond hearing in front of a judge at some point. The judge is going to be asking about this idea of his own attorneys not being able to find him. Second thing they're going to be asking is this description that they have a client that's suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. So the best thing to do in a situation situation like this is simply say we have irreconcilable differences, we're pulling out. The last thing you want is a loose cannon like Zimmerman talking to another loose cannon like Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity is a polarizing character, and any defense lawyer is going to tell you want to go into trial with as neutral as you can. Sean Hannity may not believe this, but there are many jurors that are appalled by Sean Hannity, and simply having his name associated with this is a problem for Zimmerman, as I see it.
Mr. Gelber, what would motivate a potential defendant to want to make direct contact with the prosecuting attorney after his attorneys told him not to do that?
An utter lack of judgment, and that's the only way to explain it. I mean, if he's going to represent himself, then he truly has a fool for a client, because he doesn't have any of the expertise to navigate these waters, and the idea that he would go directly to the prosecutor, and equally confounding, to go directly to someone like Sean Hannity as if that's going to help him, is just so, I mean, it reflects that this man really is irresponsible and has no judgment.
Well, Mike, what about Sean Hannity's involvement now? How legally involved is he? Because it would seem to me the question by anybody in the legal community would be, Sean, what did you ask him and what did he say?
Exactly. There's no attorney-client privilege here. What he is, everything this man says, every utterance becomes what they call an admission, and that admission can come in many different forms. Hannity can try to spin it however he can, but a good prosecutor can take any admission and usually make it work against the person accused. This guy is looking at potential life sentence with second-degree murder with a firearm in Florida. It is a potential life sentence. If it's manslaughter with a weapon, Ed, he's looking at 30 years. And you have him out there like a crazy man talking to other crazy people like Sean Hannity, who has the potential to deep six his defense. He has a great defense right now. Zimmerman has a plausible defense because of the incompetence of the state attorney's office, because of the incompetence of the police department. But he's losing that edge, and no matter what these defense lawyers do to try to advise him, he's not going to listen to him. Both your other guests and I have seen it many times in criminal defense cases. They simply don't listen.
Mr. Gelber, as a prosecuting attorney, how important is it that someone has spoken to George Zimmerman and asked him questions?
Well, listen, prosecutors often will go to trial without any statement from the defendant. So the idea that there are people out there who are going to give an account that he's given means that he's tethered to that. It makes it much harder for his defense lawyers to put on a defense. It helps the prosecution immensely. Remember something, this is a tough case to begin with because of the ridiculous stand your ground law in Florida. So this at least will maybe swing that pendulum a little bit back in the other way if those statements are ever revealed to the prosecutors.
Here's Hannity on his radio show revealing that he has spoken to the shooter.
People are trying to make this all about George Zimmerman, and I spoke to George Zimmerman, and I'm not going to reveal the contents of that conversation. But I have confirmed, yes, he was a mentor to minority children. Now, if you were a racist, I don't think you'd be a mentor to minority children.
Mr. Gelber, I have to ask, as a prosecutor, if Sean Hannity is saying that he's not going to reveal the conversation, that would only pique my interest into what did he tell you?
Yeah, and the lawyers may get involved, and who knows who else he's spoken to. I mean, I think it really, you've got an out of control client at this point, and I understand why the lawyers wanted to get out of the case. I agree that laying out their client might not have been the best way to do it, but I understand why. When they weren't communicating with him, they were lawyers without a client for all intents and purposes.
All right, Mike, let's say you're defending George Zimmerman. I mean, this guy has disregarded the advice of his attorney, just like he disregarded the advice of the 911 operator who told him not to follow Trayvon Martin. How difficult does it make it for the defense attorney?
The defense has the best defense here, Ed, is that the forensics on the case, the lack of real police work, the lack of what the state attorney's office did, gives Zimmerman a plausible defense. The stand your ground law gives him a plausible defense. Right now, it's very defensible. But as Mr. Gelber's pointed out, the more he talks, every word he speaks just gives the prosecutor another edge. What he has now, Ed, he has a bunch of flying monkeys flying around his case. He even has a website out that really attracts people like skinheads, white supremacists to give to his defense. The whole point of the prosecution is this is a murder that took place, and racism was part of the reason the murder took place. He has flying monkeys all over his case right here. His defense lawyers, I'm certain that look, they messed up in saying too much at that press conference, no question about it. But really, they have an out of control client. Mr. Gelber's had him. I've had him before. They're tough to control, and Zimmerman is his worst enemy. It's getting worse by the day every time he speaks.
One of the attorneys, Mr. Urich, compared the Zimmerman case to another famous Florida case. Here it is.
We hope for the best for George Zimmerman. We hope for the best for the Martin family as well. When this case is eventually over, and just like Casey Anthony, it will eventually be over. It's our hope that the Martin family can begin completing the grieving process for their son, and that George can get his life reinstated a little bit.
Dan, what does it tell you about Zimmerman's lawyers that they're comparing this to Casey Anthony?
Well, I hope there are no book deals in the offing for anybody. But listen, this guy is out of control, and he, unfortunately for him, unfortunately for the prosecution, he's acting right now with the same kind of lack of judgment that they're going to claim, if they do charge him, that he exercised on the night he shot and killed Trayvon Martin.
Mike Papantonio, Dan Gelber, great to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time on the Ed Show. Thank you. Remember to answer tonight's question there at the bottom of the screen. Share your thoughts on Twitter at Ed Show. We want to know what you think. Up next, did Zimmerman's former attorneys affect a potential case against George Zimmerman? Former Miami homicide detective John Butchko joins me, and former President George W. Bush, he's back at it, and he's trying to explain why the Bush tax cuts shouldn't be called the Bush tax cuts anymore. But he seems to be a little confused. Stay tuned. We're right back.